your poetry published or your short stories, Jean?
Every year when we're finished the year, we always bring out a book on all our work.
Great. And do you use your own name?
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh yeah. So what's the point? Somebody else getting the value for it?
Of course.
I know we don't get paid for it, but
But your name is there.
your name is there.
Work.
Yeah.
Well, if you'd like to learn more, there's also some more information about this in the free workbook that comes with the series. To get your free workbook, you can free phone the number on your screen, 1800 20 20 65. That's 1800 20 20 65. Or you can visit our website, www.rug.ie. Well, we've only just scratched the surface of what you can do with emails. So if you want to know a little more about how to send electronic mail, here are some more pointers.
So you've logged on and put in all the details, such as who you are sending the email to and the subject matter. All that remains is to write the body of the email. There is no need for addresses or anything like that. You simply start with your salutation. Something like Dear Mr. Marr or Hi Paddy is all you need. Email can be quite informal, but don't go too far. It's important that you're polite and to the point. So for this email, you could write something like, I have recently moved to 10 Cecil Avenue, Tralee, and I noticed the house does not have a recycling bin. I would like to get a hold of one, and a lady at your company mentioned to me that you are the man to help. I would appreciate if you could send me details of how to get a bin, or perhaps you can get one to me at your earliest convenience. My full name and address is Ms. Paula Burke, 10 Cecil Avenue, Tralee, County Kerry. It's always worth rereading your mails before you send them out, just to make sure you haven't any mistakes. Once you have written your email and you're happy with the content, you click on the send button. Once you send a mail like this, it is usually delivered in a matter of seconds, no matter where in the world you are sending it. To check if you have received a reply to your message, you go to your inbox and check for new messages. Here, you can see the reply to your message. The sender is Paddy Marr, and the mail has your original subject with RE at the start of it. Your bin is going to arrive on the 1st of April.
Sending an email may seem complicated, but the only way to learn is to try it out. Soon it will be second nature to you.
Brendan, if somebody's involved in a group or a sports club or even a group of friends and they want to set up a website or a blog, how do they do it?
There's a lot of new free web services on the net that allows you to set up your own website with absolutely no charge. Ones like Blogger. And these are exceptionally powerful websites that a few years ago would have cost thousands to actually put together. Now can be put together by ordinary people with little or no technical knowledge.
Simple to follow, is it?
Very simple to follow. If you use word processing, it has the same type of structure. You can integrate audio, do your own podcast, you can make a short film, you can undertake your own external photographs of the area. All of those can be combined in a blogger. And a blog is a particular type of website that stores your information in a diary format, in a chronological data. And loads of community groups right across the country are using them now as their online community newsletters that they can update on a regular basis. I've worked with loads of groups that had some method of communication, but not too often. Now, thanks to the new free websites that they themselves can put up, they now have their own newsletter, as I say, can give out information every day, every minute if they wished.
Any government initiatives on this?
Yeah, there's quite a few, but the main ones are programs, say, in the city like Rapid and Clara in the country that provide grants to allow people to do training courses, and in some cases to turn local community centres into an area where people can use it as a web cafe.
Have you ever looked up a creative writing workshop, for
I
example?
haven't trained in creative writing, yeah. I have looked them up.
What was it like?
It's very interesting because you can read about other people's life stories and their stories as well, and about going back to education, the whole lot. So it's very interesting to hear that other people are writing the same as you is.
Yeah. Brendan, what kind of creative writing is out there? For example, do TDs have their own websites?
Oh yeah, it's a growing thing. I mean, political blogs now have worldwide fame. People like Hillary Clinton on one side recently, Dave Cameron the other. It's taken a while at a political level to take off in Ireland. There are members
They're a bit slow, are they?
They're a bit slower actually, but we're going to be doing a course next month specifically for politicians to prepare them for the elections, of getting their information out, having their own blogs.
Well, what is government? Is it just politicians? And what exactly is a public servant? And what's the difference between a senator and a TD anyway? The government is rarely out of the news, but if you're confused by any of the terms of government in Ireland, here's a guide to help you along.
There is rarely a day that the government is not in the news. The government are the people we have chosen by general election to run the country. David McCullough is a political correspondent with RTE, and he explains to us what exactly is the Oireachtas.
The Oireachtas is the Dáil, which is made up of 166 deputies that are elected from constituencies around the country. And the Seanad, or Senate, which is made up of 60 members who aren't directly elected, they're indirectly elected. And then the third part of the Oireachtas is actually the President, Mary McAleese, who has to sign a legislation before it actually becomes officially into force.
So how is the government chosen?
Now, the way it's elected is there are 166 members of the Dáil, which is the Parliament, and whoever can get a majority of those TDs to vote for them as Taoiseach becomes head of the government and gets to choose the ministers. TDs in Irish is Teachta Dáil, a member of the Dáil, somebody that's elected from a constituency to represent the people of that area in the Dáil. At the moment, Fianna Fáil and the Progressive Democrats are in a coalition together. Fianna Fáil have the Taoiseach, Bertie Ahern, who is the head of the government, and 12 other ministers. The Progressive Democrats have 2 ministers, one of whom is the Taoiseach, which is the Deputy Prime Minister, and that's Michael McDowell.
Member of Government Sean Haughey is Minister of State for Education.
But once the Dáil and the TDs elect a Taoiseach, the Taoiseach then has sole discretion to pick his cabinet ministers. So basically the Taoiseach has a prerogative to appoint his ministers and recommend them to the President for appointment to government.
Who want people that perhaps are suited to a particular job. Maybe a former teacher would be a good Minister for Education, maybe a former lawyer would be a good Minister for Justice, and so on. And he'll also want to spread the jobs around the country a bit so that no region feels that it doesn't have a voice at the cabinet table.
So who are the main members of the cabinet?
There's 15 members of the cabinet, and the Taoiseach is in overall charge. He's the main player in the cabinet. He chairs the meetings and decides how meetings go on. The Taoiseach is Michael McDowell, and then the other main figures in the government would be the Minister for Finance, Brian Cowan, who's the guy who decides how much tax we all pay and how that money is spent. The Minister for Foreign Affairs is Dermot Ahern. He is in charge of relations with other countries. He's in charge of all our embassies abroad, and he deals with other governments on our behalf. The Minister for Education is Mary Hanafin. She's in charge, obviously, of the schools and universities and so on. The Minister for Health is Mary Harney, looks after the hospitals and doctors and negotiations with nurses. And as well as being Taoiseach, our Deputy Prime Minister, Michael McDowell is Minister for Justice, which means he's responsible for the Gardaí, for the prisons, for the courts and so on. And they'd be the main figures in Cabinet.
So what does the government do?
The government exercises executive power in accordance with the Constitution. So basically the government runs the country.
Brian Cowan and his family braving the elements as they arrived for his second budget.
The most important thing the government does every year is decide the budget. That decides how money is raised, whether it's through taxes or charges for different government services, and then it decides how the money is spent. It is also in charge of bringing legislation, new laws through the Dáil, through Parliament. The TDs will discuss it and will vote on it, and if enough of them vote for it, it'll become law. Everything that happens with politicians across in Leinster House, that's all covered on a Oireachtas report, which is on every night the Dáil is sitting. Also, every Wednesday when the Dáil is sitting, there's what's called leaders' questions, where the opposition leaders get to ask questions of the Taoiseach of the day, and that's carried live on RTE1 television, at 10:30 on a Wednesday. And then anything that's happening in politics is covered on RTE News. There's also current affairs programmes like Questions and Answers and Primetime that also deal with political issues.
Hello and welcome to Prime Time. So earlier today, Northern Ireland's Assembly.
Jean, do you have an interest in politics yourself?
Only my local TDs, and the reason for that, because of personal issues, I went to them, and I have to say I got great help, and I've seen the human side. I mean, they must be pulled from one direction to another. I'm calling to, at all hours to my.
The clinics, is it?
No, if you want to see somebody about personal issue, you go to the house or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they open their home to you, and we don't realise the amount of work that they have to do. It could be 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night. People only see one side of politicians.
So you've a good appreciation for
I
what
have
they have
definitely,
to do.
from my own area, definitely.
Yeah. What about your poetry? Do you find poetry is more therapeutic for you to write than the short stories, or do they complement each other?
They can complement each other, but with short stories you have to be careful what you write, because people probably be saying, oh, what's that? Is that her life? Is it somebody else's life?
Yeah.
Whereas with poetry you can leave it open.
Yeah. Is poetry more difficult to write, though?
I used to think poetry was impossible to write, but what I found was, because we have a very brilliant teacher, Arthur Broomfield, he has helped me so much understand poetry.
And do you like reading other people's poetry too?
I love trying to understand or trying to think what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you,
definitely.
Brendan, do you read poetry?
Oh yeah, I always loved literature, from an early day.
Do you write any?
Very little. I would write articles rather than something in the more literary sense of poetry or novel. But someday, yeah, I would like to turn my blog into a novel about some aspect of my life. But I'm not in the same category as yourself, not by a long shot.
Well, maybe you can read each other's work
yeah,
online
exactly,
at some
yes,
stage.
we can inspire each other.
Definitely.
Well, that's all we've time for today. We'd like to thank both of our guests for joining us. To Jean Conway, thanks so much for coming in, and also to Brendan Smith. In the next programme, we'll be covering how to improve your memory and a really useful guide to catching a flight. In the meantime, here are the contact details to get hold of your free student workbook that goes with the series.
For your free student pack and workbook, free phone 1800 20 20 65. That's 1800 20 20 65. Or you can go online and visit www.rug.ie or write to The Really Useful Guide to Words and Numbers, care of Nala, 76 Lower Gardner Street, Dublin 1.